Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and offering this time and all of your time. I just got to wish you.
Yes.
Right? So anyway, this is a whole different kind of lecture. It's so good to be with all of you, and I love sharing what I've learned along my path. I teach yoga, and I had, where's my TV? There you are. This great conversation with him. You know, I've kind of bitched and kicked and resisted my way through my path. And there's been a lot of obstacles that have been placed before me. And it's frustrating because in my heart, I've always known the oneness, and I've understood the cosmos and the universe and the connection and all of the heart-expanding experiences, and I've wanted that, but I grew up in the South, very conservative, and didn't get an opportunity to sort of explore that. And along my way, these really challenging things were placed before me, and I found it so frustrating because it would take me out of that knowing, that experience, that deep understanding of who I was and who the people around me were. And I didn't get a lot of that support back at me, so I just kept trudging along and had this conversation with Mikey V last night about my path has just been one of challenge, and it has taken me down to the darkest roads of my own soul. And I've been fortunate to find tools along the way. You know, yoga has been such a gift to me. It saved my life, you know, absolutely 100%. And it continues to do so every day about who I am and how I act in the world. And so my path led me to this place of like, okay, so we are this amazing, creative explosion of bliss, and then fucking form comes along. Fucking hands us out all kinds of little tricky obstacles that we have to face and look at and see and go, okay, like, I can do this, you know? So my path has led me to a place of tools, offering tools. Like, these are the tools that I have used that have helped me when I've lost my way, when I know in my heart who I'm supposed to be and how I want to connect in the world, but I just find myself not being able to fucking do it, you know? Like, that's who I am, and I'm like, really? I have to go through all these things, you know? But it's what happens, and I want to offer those tools to you guys today, and just about the way that we can, in the moment, when we're feeling ourselves slip from that connection, what we can do, how we can bring it back. And then in the moment, there's several things, but then even beyond that, long-term things that, like, we can build towards sustaining a direction with our mind, and using the mind to its full capacity. So, agitation to freedom is what I want to talk about, and what freedom means to, you know, all of us. And I encourage and ask that anybody raise your hand, like, say, oh my gosh, I got to share this, that's so, you know, what I experienced, or offer something that maybe you're like, aha, I get it, like I can put that together. I want it to be a conversation, you know. Everything I talk about, I like to give it a little context, but I don't want to go too deep into context. And what's really exciting about being here with you guys is I feel like I don't have to, because everyone's setting up for me, which is awesome. You know, so, thank you. You saved me so much time and energy, which I'm so grateful for. So I can get right to, okay, we're in the mental realm, you know, and we're working our way up in integral, and how do we maintain that integrity as we rise, you know, so that when we hit that peak, we can be at utmost integrity. And even as we descend, because the descension, even as we descend, we can take that integrity with us, so that the next place that we arise will be way higher and more evolved than the place we were previously. So that is my hope, to share some of that with you today, and always feel free to ask questions. So I operate from, even though I'm very much a tantric, non-dualistic yogini, I teach from a dualistic perspective. Of like, yes, we have this part of us that is our soul, and that is our essence, and that is, you know, our joy and our passion and our drive and our love, and it's inside of all of us. It's the, what was it, Rex? The spontaneous, autonomous, spontaneous, oh, what is she in here? Oh, so, but.
What was it, Rex?
Yes, the autonomous, spontaneous, we're autonomous parts of the universe? Yes, yes. So this is that place where we have all of it, you know. In yoga, it's called Purusha. In Sankhya philosophy, it's called Purusha. And then there's this other thing, which is all of matter and all the obstacles that come along and the things that are created that get in the way of that shining through. So the yoga that I work with is basically of getting Purusha, or that essence, and Prakriti, the form, to exist as one here on earth, right here in this body today. So that's my sort of calling, I suppose, and I hope that I can give you some valuable tools to take and put in your toolbox so that you can pull them out when you need them. So I want to, does somebody grab that light over here? I think it's above your head right there, hi darling.
No, on.
Oh, on. The other way. I hate to even erase this. That's so good. So we have this mind that is capable of pretty much anything. But unfortunately, when life happens, things cloud our perception. So let's say that this is our Purusha, this is our heart, our essence, or our soul, and then here we have this filter for the way we experience the world. And this filter is the mind and the senses. So we have this beautiful, we're this spontaneous, creative force. And then we come out, and now to touch and feel the world and experience and fall in love and know what it means to lose and to love and all of those things, we have to have a mind, a tool of perception. And our mind is just that. It's not as all that we think it is, right? It's a tool of perception only. So what we do with the mind is we direct it, and we give our attention to something, and we're able to perceive it more fully. So that's what the process of yoga is about. But what happens as we try to take that into the world, life starts to happen, whether it's the lie that Mike talked about, you know, what that he read, the lie that we're fed, all the things, all the no's, all the things that he wrote. I mean, this is basically what he was writing about in that poem that Mike so beautifully shared with us. Thank you. It gets all dirty, and, you know, all these things that we're fed and that we're programmed to believe, and the patterns that start to create, they cloud our view of the world, so that instead of us seeing the world clearly and reflecting back at us our essence, our soul, this gets in the way. And unfortunately, this channel stops. And what happens is our mind is showing us what the world looks like. And it's coming at us, and it's not looking pretty. So we do this practice of yoga, the way I've, you know, come to understand it, is to clean off the slate, you know, to get our mind to be one point of focus, so that we can really, instead of being agitated, and I'm trying to look over there and I'm seeing something, but all this other stuff that happened in my life is getting shot back at me, so I start like seeing that as my world, you know, and I don't see clearly what's in front of me, and that's agitation. So what we want and what we want to find is freedom. I mean, really, the mind is a great opportunity for us to experience our Purusha in the world. But if we get too caught up in this, then the projections of our own mind are what's haunting us day by day. So what we want to do is wipe all this clean so that once again we can reflect and take everything that we have inside, all of this, and reflect that out. And exactly what Craig was just talking about. And then your reflection of the people around you and the words that you say, etc. So what yoga is, so when I talk about yoga, there's a lot of definitions of the word yoga. God, there's so many. Bhakti yoga, karma yoga, mantra yoga, kundalini yoga, hatha yoga. The list goes on. There's so many different types and styles, but really what I do is just yoga, which is a philosophy in itself. So there's the darshana of yoga, and then there's all these other words, and they're all wonderful, and they mean union, and they mean a practice, and they mean all these things. But the philosophy of yoga in itself is really the ability to direct the mind towards a chosen something and sustain that direction without distraction. So our ability to do that, and it's what we're talking about, I can't remember, but before, I can't remember exactly, but basically the ability to be here with someone fully and understand them and not let all those projections distract us so that we can have a true understanding of what's before us. And we understand its true nature. And when we see something's true nature reflected back at us, we understand our own true nature. Right?
Yeah.
And this is what the process of yoga is about. So we're able to say, okay, I choose to focus on this, whatever thought, person, experience, whatever it may be, and then being able to keep the mind from agitating out and stay with it so that we have a better understanding. So what does that take? You know, what does it do? You have to practice. You know, if you've never really been able to open your heart, and I know Casper's going to talk about honest, communication and being clear in what you need and listening. You want to be able to do this with every experience that you have. So what does it take? Practice. If you've not done it before, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard. And so yoga says when you practice, the more you practice, whether it's being honest, being kind, or doing a back bend, or being a writer, or whatever it may be, the better you get at it. So you have to, if you're going to do something, know that it's not always going to be perfect. And you got to keep going, and you keep moving, and you have progress. And it says once you have this practice, then detachment will happen. So I always, the word detachment always threw me, because I was like, well, but I can't detach from it, and it doesn't make sense to me because I want to fully connect with the experience. But what it means and what I've learned it to mean is delinking. I'm able to link fully with something and engage fully. And then when that is done, I'm able to de-link from it, whatever that experience is, and link with the next. So that's what detachment has come to me, for me to understand, is that we are able to take our mind one-pointed, focused, link with it fully, detach, and go link with the next, so that we don't link with this, and then we link with the next thing, and we link with the next thing, and then we have all these things linked on top of each other, and we don't know which one's causing the disturbance. So we blow up at the wrong person, we do the wrong thing, we cuss out whatever we do, we have a moment of weakness, and we're like, ah! Because we don't have that ability to detach, and then just go link with the next one, because the more fully we can do that, the better choices we can make. And we make choices that speak to the impeccability of your actions, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So, and even if you're so excited, and you're so gung-ho, and you're so committed, and you're like, I'm doing this, I'm doing it. How many times have you been like, all right, I know this is who I am, and I'm going to act this way, I'm going to be this way, and then you find yourself in a situation, and you don't do that, right? So it's like, no matter how much you are committed to being the most amazing explosion of your creative, spontaneous, cellular self, life fucking punches you in the face sometimes, and you have to all right, it's rude, Leave me alone. Just let me expand further, please. So even with all that, knowing that it's going to be hard, and all this comes from the darshan of yoga, so I'm not going to get specific into the numbers of the sutras or anything like that, but there's a sutra that says it's going to be hard, and it's going to take your commitment, and it's going to take a long time, and you have to do it without interruption, and you have to really be, enthusiastic about it, and you have to have a conviction that I can do this. And even still, it's going to be hard. You're going to go through this really clunky stage where mass has a hard time, figuring it out. Mass is so heavy and just boom, it's just being created all the time. And so we have to be able to pull out of that, and it gets easier. So with practice, it does get easier, and we start to feel like, okay, I can do this. We have a relationship with this new thing. And then it becomes fun. We're like, I'm actually getting good at this. I'm going to do this more. This is good. And then we it becomes our second nature. And when we're at that point, it's good to tackle something else. But if we tackle too many things at once, and it's not what we're currently doing, we've got a pattern going in our mind, or in our habits, or in our bodies, or whatever, and we're doing that pattern, we want to do it gradually and put the right effort into what we're doing, whether it's practicing with a friend, and it could be the physical practice of yoga, it could be honest communication, it could be the breath work, whatever, just a practice in general. But you want to apply the appropriate effort, because if you don't, the mind becomes super agitated and we'll fall back into this place of like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. It's too hard, because we fall back into a habit. Because the more we've done something, the deeper that pattern goes. And the more it's a groove, and it's deep in our cellular structure. So we have to do these practices to bounce ourselves out and create a new pattern. If we do too many of those at once, we're bound to fail. Because the physical form and the mental, the senses and the mind, they aren't set up to handle that, right? They need sort of this one-pointed kind of experience, and then it starts becoming a part of us, and we don't even have to think about it, and you go, new action. You know, and you start to create new grooves, and that's what the practice of yoga is about, is creating these new grooves, these new patterns. So if you want something, you got to practice, and no matter what, it's going to be hard. And then the big one is the trust factor, the confidence, the faith, whatever word you like to use, that no matter what, no matter how dark it gets, no matter how hard it gets, the faith and the confidence that you can, and I love this, that this is in there, remember the future. Remember the future, and you can be that. You can live that. So you have to have this deep, deep trust that you are able to be that fullest expression of who you are. Whatever action it is, whatever practice you're undertaking, that will allow you to see the obstacles and go, I can go through this. It's just going to be like challenging. I'm going to have to open my heart. And that's why we do yoga. We go, all right, bring it. Fuck you, bring it. I'm going to close me and I'm going to open. I'm going to go backwards, in fact. You know, I'm going to go upside down. You try to get me there. You know, I'm going to bend over here and breathe. And you allow your whole body to be in that experience, no matter how challenging it is, being able to stay with it and maneuver and manipulate your form so that that experience can go through you. So you have to remember the future, always. Remember the goal, the future. And it's not that we're not perfect and amazing as we are, but who doesn't want more, right? This is where we started from, right? Wanting more, right? I want more happiness. I want more love. I want more joy. I want more in my whole world, more kindness, more compassion, understanding. So that's where it comes from. It's not like, oh, I'm striving to be out of the moment. No, you see and remember the future so clearly that you can be in the present going, I'm just walking towards it. Like, there might be things going along, and I got to move them out of my way, and I've got to manipulate. And so I often see my practice as, like, we're all out in the cosmos, you know, and we're in this big, huge battlefield, you know, and we're all out there, and we have different weapons that we can, you know, like, all right, there's this asteroid coming at me that looks like this form of, you know, I don't know, a horrible breakup or whatever it may be. And we're using these tools to sort of pass the tools back and forth and protect each other and help each other along the way. So there are several things when you find yourself in the moment. You're like, oh shit, you know, things are going down, that you can do. And here's the beautiful thing. In the sutras, it offers warning signals. Like, okay, warning, there's a very high possibility you could leave this state of connection, of absolute truth. Be on your lookout. Increase your practice. You know, whatever your practice is. And I'm sure we all have our own sort of practices to tune into our own spirit, our own essence. And if you don't, I encourage you to find something that allows you to just be completely absorbed in your experience that will help you to remember that when the times get more challenging. So, fatigue is one of them. Illness. Illusions about one's own state of mind, i.e. intolerance. Mental stagnation, you know, doubt, lack of perseverance, getting frustrated. So if you see these things come up, they're like, whoop, okay, be on your toes. Like, because this is when we can easily drift out of this state of absolute connection where that Purusha is informing the world and the world is giving back a reflection of our own mind. So, mental fatigue, illness, let's see, lack of perseverance, doubt, fear, and frustration. So, when those things happen, here are some tools that you can use in the moment. And these are the short-term ones I talked about. that you can use when you're like, okay, I know that there's bigger work to be done, but right now I need to do something. So one of those is, if you are feeling down, go be around really happy people. You know, go be around your community of people that will lift you up. You know, that celebrate them. Even, you know, those nights when you're like, I don't want to do anything. You know, I just don't want to do anything. I want to wallow. Like those moments you're leaving that state and you're feeling that. Go be around your friends and let them lift you up. Also, helping people that are less fortunate than you is one of the tools that it offers for getting us out of our own sort of patterns and samskaras. So go volunteer, go help someone, you know, go cook for someone, go clean for them, pick someone up from the store, you know, like whatever, pick something up from the store, whatever. Helping others that are suffering can really bring us back to that state of yoga when these little disturbances come along and they start to try to knock us off balance. Another is really give praise and support for people doing good things, you know, like really honor them and recognize them and acknowledge them, you know, so that they can continue to shine. And by offering that, that can settle us back into a state of like, yeah, giving it back to another and going, you're incredible, what can I do to help support you? And just like Craig was just saying, I mean, like all of you were just saying, you know, how can we, and Stevie G was just saying that too, like you have this resource, these tools, go be with those people and support each other. Great thing to do. And then when people do things that are disturbing, and there are so many things in our world that people are doing that are disturbing. Like, I mean, does it just like pull at your very heart? You're like, but you got to have that belief and understand and compassion, you know, and go, okay, you know what? They are very lost, right? They must be suffering greatly, and have compassion for them, because it's easy to fall into that anger and then also get judgmental and have that intolerance, and then that spirals us out of a state of connection, that state of joining into our source. So another one, and this is one of my favorites, try lengthening your exhale. Okay, that's a simple little tool. Inhale, big exhale. Just settles you right in, right? Just like, another one that's one of my favorite is chanting. And chanting is amazing in so many ways, because chanting is like, imagine you're listening to the radio station and you don't like what you're hearing. You can change the frequency and bounce to a different frequency, and you feel better. If you find a song you like, excellent. I feel awesome. You know, I'm going about my day. So we can do this with our mind. I was so excited to learn this. I just changed the channel. This is awesome. And that's what chanting does for me. It changes the channel. So we're all operating at a pretty good frequency, but I would love to do a little chant with you guys. And it's Om Kaivalya Namaha. And Om is and we'll do it quiet to respect all the classes around. But Om is the divine feminine and divine masculine fusion. It's the oneness. It is that place of absolute harmony, the sound from which the universe was just there, right? As Mikey B talked about, when it just Om. And it's that place for us to feel that oneness. And then Kaivalya is freedom. That's what yoga really is about, is finding freedom from an agitated mind. That's what the sutras are about. The philosophy of yoga as a darshana, as its own cohesive philosophy, is one that helps us move from that state of agitation to freedom. So Kaivalya is the word, and it's what the 4th chapter is all about. And then the Namaha just means I bow to, I honor, I give reverence to, I'm giving my attention to, I'm focusing, I'm calling that in. That's Namaha. And if you ever do chanting and you hear Namaha, now you know, you can put it with any word and you go, I Namaha you word, whatever that word means. Namaha, you ask. So, Namaha, you can put with any word that you love, and it just gives it that strength, that one-pointed focus. So we'll do Om Kaivalya Namaha. And when you say the word Kaivalya, excellent, thank you. When you say the word Kaivalya, you call into your mind what freedom means to you. So this is how we work with chanting. So basically, we're already there, but it's still fun to do. You know, we're in that state of connection. We're not in that agitated place right now. I mean, I feel most of us are in that very, like, sattvic, groovy little place, which is wonderful. But you can, you know, when you're not in that place, use this and just call into your mind Kaivalya. What does freedom mean to you? And let that be your visualization. So when we visualize something as we're chanting, we're honing in, right? We're honing in on that vibration and getting so clear that then we have no choice but to be able to remember that future all the time. So that smriti samadhi, that ability to remember what the future is and just chant our way towards it, right? So just tune the radio station and then start grooving, literally grooving towards your bliss. So Om Kaivalya Namaha. I'll do it once and then just join in however you see fit. You can sit, if you could sit up tall though, because chanting is yoga. It's a yoga practice. It does all the things yoga is supposed to do. So, before we do that, I'll just tell you a few of the benefits of chanting, because my whole thing is tools, because I've had obstacles placed. So if you ever have obstacles, these are some great things. You want to sit up tall when you chant, because what it does is it tones the internal organs, and it massages the internal organs. It also lengthens your exhale. And the cool thing about the sutra I told you about, one of the ways to ease agitation is to lengthen the exhale. So chanting does that, and it has more of a vibration, more of a density to it than just silence. So it's a quicker sort of way to push the mind out. It also helps to focus the mind, because when you're chanting, it's really hard to drift out. You know, there's this sort of really connected experience that happens. Another thing it does is it brightens the emotions for the reason we just talked about. And it helps improve our memory. So there's all these kind of benefits to chanting other than just pulling you out of that moment that will happen with it. So sit up nice and tall with the eyes closed. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And exhale out your mouth. Again, inhale through your nose. Exhale out your mouth. One more time together. Inhale. Om Kaivalya Namaha.
Om Kaivalya Namaha.
Om
Kaivalya Namaha.
Just keep going. So, two more tools for you. One of the other things we can do in the short term, so chanting's my favorite, like it always just takes me right there, but is to just focus on the meaning of life itself, what keeps us alive. You know, what is it that breathes us? What is it that moves us? And how all that works together. That's a great way to just stabilize the mind and go, whoa, okay, that situation is not all that. Like, there's something way bigger. And another is to get away. Which I love that one. Just get away from it. You know, just remove yourself from the situation. Go on a vacation. But also another way of looking at it is to ask someone who's been there. You know, be with someone who's been there and go, what'd you do in this situation? You know, and so I'm going to talk a little bit more about reflection and how it's so important to have someone that can reflect with you and give you sort of a clear picture of what's going on so that you can make better choices. So the philosophy of yoga is Sankhya philosophy, and it's dualistic, like I talked about, because it deals with form, so that we can use these practices to get our Purusha to inform us. Literally have our essence inform our spirit and our matter in our body. So the gunas, all of nature is subject to these three states called the gunas. And I'll just write this just for more of a picture of what they do to us. So all of matter is subject to these three states. Whether it's a rock or fire or, you know, the season, whatever. Us, our mind, our body, and our emotions. And Raja is like fire. It is a really aggressive, sort of creative, passionate energy, which we need, right? We need that creative, passionate energy. But when it's left unbalanced, Rajas creates too much heat, too much aggression, and we become angry, and we become anxious, and we become very aggressive in our actions when the mind gets too Rajas. And then Tamas is like a rock. It has this really earthy, heavy, dense energy. And it's very slow to change. It's very dull. When it gets too overworked in our mind, it becomes boredom and lethargy and depression and things like that. Sattva is the state at which matter vibrates the closest with Purusha, with our soul, with our essence. So the whole philosophy of yoga is to help us to have a sattvic mind. A mind that is stable enough, appropriate. So the great word I love for sattva is appropriate. Like, yeah, if you're going to be a little angry about something, it's appropriate, you know? When you hear something someone got hurt very badly, you know, by someone else or whatever, it makes you angry, the way that our country's run, or whatever it is, you know. So it's appropriate in certain situations. But what's not appropriate is I blow up at my husband for something that happened 2 days ago because I stuffed it down. You know, that's not appropriate rajas. So what yoga is how do we have this sattvic mind? How do we find this sattvic? No, I never blow up. Ever. So the problem with rajas is that it's addictive, right? So think of like drugs, you know, like you can't sustain it. It's not sustainable, right? You want to, you're like, eat that, and it always goes down, right? So rajas is that it's addictive, it's not sustainable, and when we're operating at this peak of rajas, it always leads to tamas. And tamas is the depression, lethargy, I suck, I feel like shit, you know, whatever it is. I always think of, you know, growing up just eating food, the whole thing, trying to be healthy, and didn't have any support from it growing up in Nashville, Tennessee. There was not a lot of healthy options around. But, you know, just like, okay, tomorrow, I am going to eat only salad and vegetables, and I'm going to work out 7 days a week. Mind you, I've done none of this up until this point, right? So I get up and I'm like, all right, I'm on it. I'm so committed. But it's not appropriate because remember I talked about earlier, the system can't handle too many changes at once because the mind's better at single-pointed focus. So you throw a bunch of stuff at it and it gets all kinds of agitated and it tries, and I'm so in it, and I'm working out 2 weeks, and then I'm on the couch. I'm a loser. I haven't worked out in 3 weeks. I'm crying. I'm eating pot, whatever. know, we stay in this state. The problem when we get into tamas, here's the worst part. When we're in this place of deep depression, the only solution we see is a rajasic one. Yeah. Because the mind is not stabilized. So it's like, I got to get back up there. And then it falls. And I got to get back up. And so we go to this, and it's called the rajasic tamasic cycle. So we're like, I'm going to work out 7 days a week. Woo, I'm awesome. And then I fail miserably, and I suck, and I'm a loser, and I stay there forever. And then eventually I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I'm like, up here again. And I can't sustain it. So it's called the rajasic tamasic cycle. Its modern day term is bipolar disorder. So the sutras talk about this in the state of, and the Bhagavad Gita does as well, is this state of mind that we want is sattva so that it's appropriate, we can sustain it, and it's luminous. It's full of just absolute brilliant energy because it's closest to our soul, to our essence. So the entire practice of yoga is about finding a sattvic mind. That's what we're trying to do so that we can have clear perception. Because the mind is a wonderful tool and can understand anything fully if you give it your full attention. It can understand anything. But it takes commitment and takes time. So what are we putting in front of the mind? What are we giving it to perceive? You know, and if it can understand everything, let's get really good at honing the mind's ability to stay one-pointed focus so that it can understand it so fully that you become absorbed in that experience. And there is no difference between you and it. There's the oneness right here on earth. So what I'm about to offer you is a tool, thank you, a tool for gaining, it's basically the yoga of action on how to have a sattvic mind. How to make sattvic change. And it says the first thing we need to do is do something opposite of what we're doing. Contrary action. Because if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll keep getting what you're getting, pretty much, right? So you got to do something different. And tapas, another word for it, you think of tapas like the Spanish appetizer, it also means to cook. Because when you cook something, it changes it. So it's right, it's changing your actions, right? And so you do a tapas, whatever that practice may be, and then it's like you have this thirst to change, to be something different, or to do something different. So you have to do something, and this is where impeccability in your actions comes in. Be impeccable in your actions, right? So if it's not an action that is creating more joy, do a different action that allows you to be impeccable, that allows you to stand up in your truth and to be there with it every single time. And then the second part of this, and it's nice if you can do this before contrary action, but I don't need to go rewriting things or anything like that. Svadhyaya is, Svadhyaya is reflection. So, reflect. If you can find someone to reflect with that can give you that honest picture, or maybe you read something inspirational, you know, or whatever it is, the breath is a great reflective tool. How are you breathing in the moment? If it's not a long, smooth, deep breath, reevaluate what your action is about to be. You know what I'm saying? If you can't do that action with a full inhale and full release, take a pause. Do a different action. You know what I mean? So that's a great tool in the moment. Reflect, either with a person, with your own breath, or by reading something powerful that can shift you. Yeah, baby? Writing the thoughts? Yes, writing down your thoughts. That's a great reflective tool, totally. And any reflective tools that anybody wants to share, please do. That's a great one because it allows that mirror for you to, whoa, what is that? That's not, whoa, that's just a focus I'm giving, right?
My life, the first time, I remember I was confused, and when I wrote down a lot of my thoughts, it just became thoughts, and then these memories that came up in childhood came down on paper, and I relived the whole thing again, and it was therapeutic because I had these jumbled up thoughts in my mind. I kind of found there was something tangible, and I could control.
Yeah. See, that's a great opportunity to see that. Yeah, that's really good. I love that. So any reflective tool that can show you what's going on. And then the last one is Ishvara Pranidhana, or surrender. So surrender goes back to being impeccable in your actions as well. It's like, focus on the quality of your actions, not the end result. Because when you focus on the end result, that place never exists. The only moment that exists is right now, so that you can surrender fully by being completely impeccable in your actions. You can become teachable at this point, when you can let go and get out of your own way, because you can't control everything. And if you try to control everything, that means you're not willing to learn. And so you have to step back and be teachable and be willing to learn and surrender and trust, right? So that, to me, is the hardest part, is getting out of the way of your own self and allowing things to unfold. So this is like refinement, reflection, and release. So this, when you are wanting to change or have a more sattvic mind, this is the way to change in a sattvic way, so you don't end up in that rajasic tamasic cycle, and you can move forward. You know, I always like to call it surfing the sattvic. You know, it's like, yeah, when I get up in the morning, I'm going to have more energy, I'm going to be more up, but at night, I want to be a little more heavy like a rock, you know, and when I'm creating something, I want to have a little more fire. But it's not the peaks and the valleys where you get stuck in that trap of matter, just getting out of its center and getting hit by everything that's coming at it, all the particles and everything. No, pull it into sattvic and move forward from there. So that's what the practice of yoga seeks to do. So when you want to change, yeah.
I just wanted to say about the surrender
Yes,
part.
please.
One of my favorite things about that, about the classical yogic definition of accepting that you're not the master of the universe.
Yes.
But in regard to what we've all been hearing and what people have been sharing today, the idea that we are an integral part of the universe. So we are a part of the master of the universe, but allow for that to be all around us rather than getting into our heads and thinking that we have to be the master of the universe so that we'll be okay.
Right.
And allowing for that, things that Rex was talking about, and everyone really, that allowing to know that we're a part of it, and that if we get out of the way, as you're saying, that if what we are supposed to be doing or what is our highest good or whatever you want to call it will show up naturally.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful way to put it. I love that. Thank you so much. Oh, that was a snack? Sorry. Okay. So, yes.
I was wondering, how much reflection is wallowing? Or is there a danger there?
There is a big wallowing factor, yes. Yes. That is an awesome question, because there's a point when the wallowing itself becomes part of the journey and we get kind of in that route, you know? So you want to pick a reflective tool that's going to bounce you out of, you know, right? So if you got a person that can be real, like, okay, I hear you and I want to hear you, you got 15 minutes, go. And then we're going to do a different action. We're going to experience a different something, you know? Because it's important for people to be heard and acknowledged, but if we stay there, then the groove gets deeper, and it gets deeper, and it gets harder to bounce out. And, you know, like I said, I'm all about efficiency and how do I bounce from these turbulent situations back to my center. And so, yeah, the wallowing part, just limit it, you know, and find someone who'll call you on it. That'll be like, awesome, now let's do something different, contrary action. Let's go take a walk. Well, whatever it is, something different than, yeah. They don't, but people ask that a lot. They're similar in nature. The doshas in Ayurveda, the 3 doshas, she said, do they map to them? And I've seen them related, and I've also studied with Ayurvedists that says they're not so much. So, but if you can see the connection, absolutely. You know what I mean? Like, because I see it sometimes too. I'm like, oh, I see that a little bit. Yeah. And you know, these aren't bad things. They're just, we don't want them to control us. So yoga, really, we become the master of the gunas in that we can live in form. We have a memory of the past and the memory that keeps us humble and keeps us like functioning. But we don't feel like they can come up and grab us just by any, you know what I mean, like tip off or, you know, something upsets us. They don't come get us again. I used to feel that way, that my patterns would pop back up the moment I was weak. So, you know, doing the practice of yoga is like, okay, I still remember that you're there. I know that you can come back if I get mental fatigue, if I get sick, I got to be aware of that. I'll be on my guard. I'll step up my chanting or whatever it may be to help my mind from slipping out of that place and keeping it here. Yeah, so, good, excellent. So one last thing I want to just barely segue into Casper. Do I have enough time, Craig?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Is with another quick tool, because I'm the tool girl. I'm the tool girl. One of the tools that yoga provides is for us to have discernment, the ability. So we all know what discernment is. The Sanskrit word's viveka, but the ability to see all sides of something. And it's like the mind goes around our chosen something, our object of concentration, whatever it is, and it covers it like an ointment, and it just absorbs the qualities of it, right? So, and it sees all sides, and we don't get kind of affected by right or wrong. We just see what is, We don't get caught up in the trap. And to do that, to have this fine mind, you might have heard it as the 8 limbs. Has anybody heard the 8 limbs? Cool. I'm not going to get Sanskrit. I'm going to go very practical. I'm going to go into the 8 limbs and how they relate. But this is what it says will give you that fine mind, that mind that can see all sides of something. And it is basically boils down to our relationships, our lifestyle, our body, our breath, our senses, and our mind. So basically, we're looking for this ability to balance, to find this sattvic sort of place, and to be able to see things clearly so that we don't misperceive and we don't act based on ignorance, right? Because a lot of the times we're just misperceiving something. That's it. We're seeing it wrongly. We know we're right, but we're wrong. You know what I mean? So the first thing you want to balance is that in your relationships is between honesty and kindness. And they are not the same thing. So finding, and Casper's going to talk about communication, which is awesome. So, they're not the same thing at all, right? Honest people, don't have many friends. Kind people have a lot of them and resent them all. So, we want to find that place in the middle where we're like, okay, all right. In your lifestyle, you want to find the balance between growth and gratitude. We can always want for more love, more happiness, more health, more connection. But we always need to remember how much we already do. So we don't want to get caught in either one, where we're like, it's all good, I don't need to do nothing. No, we need to get out there and co-create. We need to do that. There's stuff to be done, but not to the point where we can't enjoy this moment right now. So there's the balance, the tipping point right in the middle. The body, we want a body that when we move in our body and our postures, it talks specifically about yoga, but with anything, we want there to be effort and ease. Because if there's too much effort, too much challenge, it breaks things down. If there's too much ease, we're stuck and we can't get up. So we need to find that place where we feel challenged, but can relax and breathe deeply and still stay connected. With the breath, we want a breath that's long and smooth. Because I can make it long. I can keep doing that forever. But it's not smooth. It doesn't feel very stabilizing for the system. So long and smooth. The senses, there's a bunch of sensory people here, so this is good. You want to be able to, don't judge the first word, control them and enjoy them. For example, you eat something that tastes amazing, you don't need to eat 45 of them. Right? Yes, it's like we want to enjoy our senses, but we don't want to go into the place where we can't control it and it controls us. So being the master of our own senses and how they work and what's appropriate. And then with the mind, we want a mind that's focused yet relaxed. So that information can come in, but we don't lose our ability. If we're too focused, nothing else can come in, and we can't see other sides of things. But if we relax, we can see that there's other options, but I'm going to stay focused until better information comes along that shows me I shouldn't be focusing this way. I need to change my direction and focus this way. So we want a mind that has the ability to change directions, and if we're too focused, we can't change directions, and we see this running rampant in our world. People get into a corner of a belief system, and they're there so deeply that they cannot even admit that there's another way, and they try to control everyone else into believing that way. And again, it goes into the lie that we're fed. And then the mind that is also... I feel like dancing every time. And then finally, the very last, we want a mind that's devoted yet detached. The balance between that. So if we can work on these things, then we will have a mind that is more sattvic and one that can express our Purusha. We can, in our form, live as if we're formless. And that's what I want to do.
Woo!